My brother, Caden, was a goddamn sunbeam. That's the only way to describe him. Blonde, perpetually smiling, radiating this effortless charisma that made everyone around him weak in the knees, especially our parents. Mom and Dad? They practically worshipped the ground Caden walked on. It wasn't just favoritism, it was a full-blown religion. Caden could fart, and they'd frame the sound wave. Me? I could cure cancer, and they'd probably ask why I didn't cure it faster. I'm Liam, by the way, 25 years old, and eternally cast in the shadow of the golden boy. I wasn't a screw-up, not really. I just wasn't Caden. I remember one time when I was maybe 16, I'd spent weeks building this elaborate model airplane. Intricate, detailed, the kind of thing you'd see in a museum. Caden, being the angel he was, decided to play with it. 10 minutes later, it was a pile of splintered wood. I lost it, screamed at him. He ran to Mom, tears streaming, and suddenly I was the monster. Why are you always so angry, Liam? Can't you see your brother just wants to have fun? Fun? My meticulously crafted creation, reduced to rubble, was fun. That was the blueprint for my entire childhood. Caden could do no wrong. I was always the problem, the one who needed to be managed, corrected, lessoned. It wasn't enough for them to love Caden. They needed to diminish me to make him shine brighter. And Caden? He knew it. He exploited it. He was a master puppeteer, pulling the strings of our parents' emotions, always making sure I looked like the villain. He'd leave a mess in the kitchen, then tell our parents I did it when he knew I didn't even go to the kitchen that day. I would yell at him that I didn't do it, and end up getting punished for yelling. It was always some subtle insinuation, a carefully placed seed of doubt. Liam seems stressed lately. Is everything okay with him? He'd ask, all innocent concern, knowing damn well I was just trying to focus on school while he blared his music. Then there was the money. I worked summers, bagging groceries, mowing lawns. I saved every penny, dreaming of getting a car. Caden? He got a brand new motorcycle for his birthday. No questions asked. I even remember hearing my parents talking how I need to learn the value of $1. It was insane. The injustice of it clawed at me, a constant, gnawing ache. I learned to swallow it down, to build walls around my anger and resentment. I channeled it into working out, into excelling in school, into proving them wrong. But deep down, the bitterness festered. I knew I needed to get out, to escape the gilded cage they had built around Caden and me. College was my escape hatch. I got a scholarship, packed my bags, and left. Caden, of course, went to the same university, paid for by Mom and Dad, majoring in undeclared and spending most of his time partying. That's where he met Serena. Serena was a force of nature, beautiful, in that polished, surgically enhanced kind of way. Blonde hair cascading down her back, always perfectly made up, dressed in clothes that screamed expensive. She was a social media queen, obsessed with followers, likes, and the illusion of perfection. She had the fake kind of charm. Caden, predictably, fell head over heels. I saw right through her. There was something calculating in her eyes, a hunger that went beyond mere ambition. She wanted something, and she was willing to do anything to get it. At first, I kept my distance. Serena was Caden's problem, not mine. But then she started paying attention to me. It started subtly. Compliments, little digs at Caden, always when he wasn't around. You're so driven, Liam. Caden could really learn from you. Then they turned more obvious, more suggestive. She'd find excuses to touch me, a lingering hand on my arm, a brush of her leg against mine. I remember one night we were all at a bar. Caden was off doing shots with his frat buddies. Serena cornered me near the jukebox. She leaned in close, her perfume cloying. You know, Liam, she purred. I've always been drawn to the quiet type. Caden is fun, but... She let the sentence hang, her eyes scanning me up and down. My skin crawled. I wanted to vomit. Serena, I said, my voice low and hard. You're playing a dangerous game. I'm not interested. She just laughed, a brittle, artificial sound. Don't be so sure, Liam. Everyone has a price. She started texting me too, late at night. Harmless questions at first. But then they grew bolder. Serena, you up? Thinking about all those muscles you hide under those boring clothes? Maybe you should give me a private workout session sometime? Caden is hopeless, lol. I ignored them. Deleted them. Blocked her number. But she was relentless. She'd find other ways to reach me, through social media, through mutual friends. It was a constant, low-level harassment, designed to chip away at my resolve. The worst part was, I started to feel something. Not attraction, not even close, but a perverse fascination. Serena was a train wreck, and I couldn't look away. And I had to think that Caden was too stupid to even realize she was coming on to me. Looking back, I should have told Caden. I should have warned him about Serena, about her manipulations, about her blatant attempts to seduce me. But I didn't. Maybe it was the years of resentment, the desire to see Caden suffer, even just a little. Maybe I wanted to see how far she would go. That was my mistake. It happened after a family dinner. One of those excruciatingly awkward affairs where Mom and Dad fawned over Caden and Serena, and I sat in stony silence, picking at my food. As always, I was nothing more than a background character. As everyone was clearing up, I went to my old room upstairs. Everyone was downstairs when I heard a tap on the door. Figuring it was my mom, I called to enter. It was Serena. She came inside and closed the door behind her. Liam, she breathed, her voice a husky whisper. I need to talk to you. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal awareness of danger. Serena, get out. She ignored me. She took a step closer, her eyes locked on mine. I'm tired of pretending, Liam. I'm tired of Caden. He's a child. You're a man. She reached out, her fingers tracing the line of my jaw. I flinched away. Don't touch me. Her expression hardened. Don't play hard to get, Liam. We both know you want this. Get out, I repeated, my voice low and menacing. Before I make you, that's when she lunged. She grabbed my shirt, trying to pull me closer, her mouth open, ready to kiss me. I shoved her away, hard. She stumbled back, her eyes wide with surprise. Are you out of your goddamn mind? I growled. Get the hell out of my room. If you ever pull a stunt like this again, I swear to God, I'll tell Caden everything. Her face twisted, the carefully constructed mask of seduction crumbling. For a moment, I saw the real Serena, the cold, calculating manipulator beneath the surface. You wouldn't, she hissed. Try me, I said. She didn't say anything. She just stared at me, her eyes burning with hatred. Then she turned and fled, disappearing down the stairs. I should have known then. I should have realized that Serena wasn't going to let this go. I should have understood that she was capable of anything. I didn't! The next morning, the house was silent, ominously silent. I walked into the kitchen and saw them. Mom, Dad, and Caden. Their faces were grim, their eyes filled with accusation. Serena stood behind them, her face tear-streaked, her eyes red and puffy. I knew what was coming. Liam, Dad said, his voice cold and hard. Serena told us what happened last night. I froze. She says, you tried to force yourself on her. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I stared at Serena, at her carefully crafted expression of victimhood. A wave of nausea washed over me. That's a lie, I said, my voice shaking. She came to my room. She tried to kiss me. I pushed her away. Caden lunged at me, his face contorted with rage. You sick bastard! I'm going to kill you! Dad held him back, but his eyes were filled with the same murderous intent. Is this true, Serena? Mom asked, her voice trembling. Serena burst into tears. I didn't want to say anything. But he wouldn't take no for an answer. They believed her. Of course they believed her. Why wouldn't they? She was the damsel in distress. I was the perpetual troublemaker. It fit their narrative. It reinforced their biases. "Get out," Dad said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Get out of my house. You're not going to listen to me?" I pleaded. "You're not going to even ask for my side of the story?" Mom turned away, her face buried in her hands. Caden just glared at me, his eyes filled with hatred. "I don't want to see you again," Dad said. "You're no son of mine, that was it." Just like that, I was banished. Exiled from my family, branded a monster, all based on a lie. As I packed my bags, the anger began to simmer. Years of resentment, of injustice, of being overshadowed by Caden, all boiled over. This wasn't just about Serena's lie. It was about everything. About the constant favoritism, about the blind faith in Caden, about the complete disregard for my feelings. As I walked out the door, I looked back at them. Mom, Dad, Caden, and Serena. They stood there, united against me, their faces filled with judgment. "You'll regret this," I said, my voice cold and hard. "You'll all regret this." Getting kicked out was one thing. Realizing how easily they did it, that was worse. No hesitation, no doubt, no second guessing. They threw me away like I was nothing. Like I wasn't their son. Like I hadn't been part of that family for over 20 years. I had nothing. A duffel bag of clothes, a few $100s in my bank account, and my beat-up car. I drove until I didn't know where I was. I parked in a deserted parking lot, leaned back in my seat, and stared at the sky. What now? I was alone. Truly alone. My family had disowned me. My friends, most of whom were Caden's friends, wouldn't dare speak to me. I had no job, no prospects, no future. For a moment, I considered giving up, letting the despair consume me, just driving off a cliff and ending it all. But then I thought of them, Mom, Dad, Caden, and Serena, their smug faces, their unwavering belief in my guilt. And the anger flared again, hotter than ever. I wouldn't let them win. I wouldn't let them break me. I would survive, and I would make them regret what they had done. I found a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. It was a dump, but it was a roof over my head. The next morning, I started looking for work. I pounded the pavement, filled out applications, swallowed my pride, and begged for a chance. I ended up with a job at a warehouse. Loading boxes, sweeping floors, doing the kind of back-breaking labor I had always avoided. It was minimum wage, but it was a start. I also took a night shift at a gas station. 2 jobs, no sleep, just grinding. I ate cheap food, slept in my car between shifts, and pushed myself to the point of exhaustion. It was brutal, but it was working. I was surviving, and I was building something. I refused to let myself wallow in self-pity. Every spare moment I had, I was learning. I read books on finance, on business, on anything that could give me an edge. I taught myself to code, building websites for small businesses in my spare time. I hated it, but I knew it was a necessary evil. I wasn't just going to survive. I was going to thrive. I was going to become so successful, so powerful, that my family wouldn't be able to ignore me. And when that day came, they would finally realize the magnitude of their mistake. Meanwhile, Caden was living the dream. He and Serena were inseparable, posting pictures of themselves on exotic vacations, flaunting their lavish lifestyle. Mom and Dad were still bankrolling everything, showering Caden with gifts and opportunities. I tried not to look. I tried to focus on my own life, on building my own success. But sometimes I couldn't help myself. I'd scroll through Caden's social media and the anger would flare again. It wasn't just the unfairness of it all. It was the waste. Caden was squandering his potential, throwing away the advantages he had been given. He had no ambition, no drive, no sense of responsibility. He was a spoiled brat, and he was destined for a fall. I knew it. and deep down, a part of me wanted to see it happen. But another part of me still cared. Despite everything, Caden was my brother. We had shared a childhood, a bond that couldn't be completely broken, no matter how much I tried. I pushed the thought away. I couldn't afford to care. I had to focus on myself, on my own survival. As the months turned into years, I climbed the ladder. I got promoted at the warehouse, then quit to focus on my freelance business. I landed bigger clients, built a reputation for excellence, and started making real money. I moved out of the motel and into a small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I started saving, investing, building a financial foundation for my future. I was finally free. Free from my family, free from Caden's shadow, free from Serena's manipulations. I had built my own life, on my own terms. But even as I achieved success, the bitterness lingered. The wound of my family's betrayal refused to heal. I couldn't forgive them for what they had done. I couldn't forget the pain they had inflicted. I was a phoenix, risen from the ashes. But the embers of resentment still burned within me. It was my cousin Leo who told me. Leo was the only member of my extended family who had stayed in touch. He had always been an ally, a voice of reason in the midst of the family drama. "You're not going to believe this," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Caden's life is falling apart." I felt a flicker of something. Not joy, not exactly, more like a grim satisfaction. Leo filled me in. Caden's business ventures had all failed. He had run through his savings, maxed out his credit cards, and was deeply in debt. Mom and Dad had finally cut him off, refusing to enable his reckless spending any longer. Serena had left him. She had found a wealthier, more successful man to latch onto. Caden was alone, broke, and desperate. "He's trying to get in touch with you," Leo said. "He needs money. He thinks you'll bail him out." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "He's got another thing coming." "I know," Leo said. "But I thought you should know. They're starting to realize they made a mistake." "Too late," I said. "Way too late." Still, the news stirred something within me, a faint glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, my family was finally going to see the truth. Maybe they were finally going to understand the damage they had done. But even if they did, it wouldn't change anything. The years of pain and resentment couldn't be erased with a simple apology. The bond between us was broken, shattered beyond repair. The call came a week later. "From Mom?" I stared at the caller ID, my heart pounding in my chest. I hadn't spoken to her in years. I had blocked her number, but somehow she had found a way through. I hesitated. Should I answer? Should I let her back into my life? I took a deep breath and pressed the answer button. "What do you want?" I said, my voice cold and controlled. She burst into tears. "Liam," she sobbed, "please, you have to help us." "Help you?" I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "After everything you did? You expect me to help you?" "Caden is in trouble," she said. "He's in serious trouble. He needs money." "He needs you. He needs me?" I repeated. "The same son you disowned? The same son you branded a monster? Now, suddenly, he needs me?" "We were wrong," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "We were so wrong. We believed Serena. We didn't listen to you. Please, Liam, can't you find it in your heart to forgive us?" I laughed, a hard, cruel sound. "Forgive you? You destroyed my life. You turned your back on me. You expect me to just forgive you? I know we don't deserve it," she said. "But please, Liam, Caden is your brother. You can't let him suffer." "He's not my brother," I said. "Not anymore. You made sure of that. Please," she begged. "Just meet us. Just talk to us. We'll explain everything." I hesitated. A part of me wanted to hang up, to shut her out of my life forever. But another part of me needed to hear it. I needed to see their faces, to witness their humiliation, to finally get the apology I deserved. "Fine," I said. "I'll meet you." but don't expect any miracles. We met at a restaurant, a fancy place, the kind of place Caden and Serena used to frequent. Mom and Dad were already there, looking haggard and defeated. Caden sat beside them, his eyes downcast, his face pale and drawn. They looked old and tired, defeated by life. I sat down, my gaze sweeping over them. "So," I said, my voice cold and flat, "what do you want?" Mom launched into a tearful apology, begging for forgiveness, promising to make amends. Dad mumbled something about mistakes being made, about learning from their errors. Caden remained silent, his eyes fixed on the table. "And you?" I said, turning to him. "What do you have to say?" He looked up, his eyes filled with shame. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely audible. "I screwed up. I was a jerk. I didn't appreciate you. You believed Serena. I finished for him. You let her destroy my life." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I know. I was blind. She manipulated me. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. And now, you need my help," I said. "Now that you've lost everything, you come crawling back to me. I don't expect you to forgive me," he said. "I don't deserve it. But please, Liam, I'm desperate. I don't know what to do." I stared at him, at his broken, defeated face. For a moment, I felt a pang of something. Pity? Compassion? I pushed it away. "You reap what you sow," I said. "You made your bed, now lie in it. Please," Mom begged. "He's your brother. You can't let him suffer." "He's not my brother," I said. "Not anymore. You made sure of that. This is exactly what you all wanted. You believed in him, and now you're seeing it fall apart. This is your creation." I pulled out my wallet, took out a $100 bill, and tossed it on the table. "Buy yourself some dignity," I said. "You're going to need it." I stood up and walked out, leaving them sitting there, staring at the money. As I drove away, I felt a sense of nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, no relief, just emptiness. I had finally gotten my revenge. I had made them suffer. I had proven them wrong. But it didn't bring me any joy. It didn't fill the void inside me. The wound of their betrayal still festered, a constant reminder of the pain they had inflicted. Time passed. I continued to build my business, achieving more success than I had ever dreamed possible. I surrounded myself with loyal friends, people who valued me for who I was, not for who my family was. But even as I thrived, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The anger had faded, but the emptiness remained. The victory felt hollow, incomplete. Then I got the call. From Leo. "It's Caden," he said, his voice grim. "He's been arrested." I felt a jolt of shock, followed by a cold, sinking feeling in my stomach. "What happened?" "Fraud," Leo said. "Embezzlement." He got desperate. He made some bad decisions. He's facing serious charges. I closed my eyes, the weight of the news pressing down on me. Caden had fallen. Hard. He had gone from the golden boy to a convicted criminal. "What about Mom and Dad?" I asked. "They're devastated," Leo said. "They're trying to help him, but there's not much they can do. They're finally realizing the extent of his problems." I hung up the phone, the silence of my apartment deafening. Caden was going to prison. My parents were heartbroken. My family was in ruins, and it was all my fault. Not directly, of course. I hadn't committed the crimes. I hadn't made the bad decisions. But I had set the stage. I had fueled the resentment, nurtured the bitterness, and allowed the anger to consume me. I had wanted them to suffer, and they had. But the cost was higher than I had ever imagined. I spent the next few days in a daze, replaying the events of the past few years in my mind. Every decision, every action, every word. I saw my own flaws, my own failings, my own contribution to the tragedy. I had been so focused on revenge that I had lost sight of everything else. I had allowed the past to define me, to control me, to destroy me. I realized that I couldn't go on like this. I couldn't live with the guilt, with the regret, with the knowledge that I had played a part in my family's downfall. I had to do something. I drove to the prison. I waited in the visitor's room, my hands trembling, my heart pounding in my chest. Caden walked in, looking gaunt and defeated. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hair shaved close to his head. He looked like a completely different person. He sat down across from me, his eyes filled with shame. "I don't deserve this," he said, his voice barely audible. "No," I said. "You don't." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the past hanging heavy in the air. "I'm sorry," I said, finally breaking the silence. "For everything. For the anger, for the resentment, for the way I treated you." He looked up, his eyes wide with surprise. "You forgive me?" "I'm trying," I said. "It's not easy, but I'm trying." He reached across the table, his hand trembling. I took it, my fingers closing around his. "I forgive you too," he said. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you." We talked for hours. We talked about our childhood, about our parents, about Serena. We talked about our mistakes, about our regrets, about our hopes for the future. I learned that Caden had finally realized the error of his ways. He had seen through Serena's manipulations. He had understood the damage he had inflicted on me. He had learned from his mistakes. He wasn't the golden boy anymore. He was just a man trying to find his way back from the brink. When I left the prison, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. The anger had finally dissipated, replaced by something else. Understanding, compassion, forgiveness. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Caden had a long sentence to serve. My family had a long way to go to heal. The scars of the past would never completely disappear. But for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I believed that we could rebuild our relationship, that we could heal the wounds, that we could find a way to move forward. The price of gold had been high, but maybe, just maybe, it was worth it. Life moved on. Caden stayed in prison. He was a model prisoner. My parents visited him, still loving him, and I slowly built a more normal relationship with them. Then, one of my clients told me that someone had reached out to them with a negative comment about my business. They wanted to know if it was true that I had some shady practices. My gut clenched. Then it happened again. A few more comments, all from different people, all saying the same thing. I was able to trace some of the comments back to the same social media accounts. And that's when I figured it out. Serena! She was back. She had returned to try and destroy my life. I had heard she was dating a new boyfriend, probably living off his money, but I didn't know why she would do it. Why would she come back after all this time? I hired an investigator. It didn't take long for them to find her. She was dating a new boyfriend, probably living off his money, but I also learned that she was still bitter about what happened with Caden. She still blamed me for ruining her life. And she wanted revenge, so I did what any sensible person would do. I called my lawyer, the same lawyer who had helped me secure my contracts and build my business. "Defamation," I said. "She's spreading lies about my business. I need you to shut her down." He agreed to take the case. We filed a lawsuit, and that's when I learned about the video. Apparently, one of Serena's friends had recorded her drunken confession years ago. The one where she admitted that she had lied about me. That video was a goldmine. My lawyer presented it to the court. Serena denied everything. She claimed the video was fake, that she was drunk, that she didn't know what she was saying. The judge didn't buy it. The video was clear. The evidence was overwhelming. Serena was found guilty of defamation. She was ordered to pay damages and issue a public apology. Her reputation was ruined. Her career was over. I felt a flicker of satisfaction. She had tried to destroy my life, and she had failed. But it also felt empty. What was the point? Did it make me feel better to see her suffer? Did it erase the pain of the past? No, it didn't. But it did send a clear message. Don't mess with me. Don't try to destroy my life. Because I will fight back, and I will win. Life goes on. My business continues to thrive. My family is healing. Caden is still in prison, but he's doing well. He's taking classes, learning new skills, preparing for his release. And I'm finally at peace. I've forgiven my family. I've let go of the anger. I've embraced the future. I know that the scars of the past will never completely disappear, but I also know that I'm stronger because of them. I've learned from my mistakes. I've grown as a person, and I'm finally free. Free from the shadow of the golden boy. Free from the manipulations of Serena. Free from the weight of the past. I'm Liam, and I'm building my own future. On my own terms. The price of gold was high, but in the end, it was worth it. The lawsuit against Serena was a turning point, not just for my business, but for me personally. It forced me to confront the past, to unpack the baggage I'd been carrying for so long. Seeing her face the consequences of her actions, the shame and humiliation etched into her features as the judge read the verdict, it was cathartic. Not in a triumphant, vindictive way, but in a sense of finally closing a chapter. The public apology she was forced to post online was pathetic, a hollow, carefully worded statement that dripped with insincerity. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. Her carefully crafted image, her influencer facade, had crumbled. She was exposed for who she truly was, a manipulative, insecure woman desperate for attention. I didn't relish in her downfall. I didn't gloat. I simply moved on. I poured my energy back into my business, expanding my team, taking on bigger projects, pushing myself to new heights. I started mentoring young entrepreneurs, sharing my experiences, helping them avoid the pitfalls I had stumbled into, and I started thinking about love, a real relationship based on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. Not the twisted, manipulative game Serena had played. The thought terrified me. After everything I had been through, could I truly trust someone again? Could I open myself up to that kind of vulnerability? My friend, Chloe, kept trying to set me up. You need to get out there, Liam, she'd say, her eyes twinkling. You're too focused on work. You need some fun, some romance, some life. I resisted. I made excuses. I told her I was too busy, that I wasn't ready. But deep down, I knew she was right. I couldn't let the past dictate my future. I couldn't let Serena or my parents or Caden or anyone else rob me of the chance to find happiness. So I reluctantly agreed to go on a blind date. Her name was Maya. She was a graphic designer, independent, creative, and fiercely intelligent. We met at a small, cozy restaurant, the kind of place where you could actually hear yourself talk. I was nervous. Awkward. I stumbled over my words, spilled my drink, and generally made a fool of myself. Maya, however, was incredibly gracious. She laughed at my jokes, asked insightful questions, and made me feel comfortable. We talked for hours about our work, our passions, our dreams, about our families, our pasts, our fears. She listened intently, her eyes filled with empathy, and I found myself opening up in ways I never thought possible. I told her about Caden, about Serena, about my parents, about the lawsuit, about everything. She didn't judge me. She didn't offer platitudes. She simply listened and offered words of comfort and support. By the end of the night, I was smitten. We went on a second date, and a third, and a fourth. We spent hours talking, laughing, exploring the city, discovering our shared interests. I found myself falling for her. Hard. As my relationship with Maya deepened, I started to heal. Her presence in my life was a balm to my wounded soul. She showed me what it meant to be truly loved, unconditionally, without judgment or expectation. She encouraged me to reach out to my parents. "They're your family, Liam," she said. "They made mistakes, but they still love you. You need to forgive them for your own sake." I was hesitant. I had built walls around my heart, and letting them back in felt dangerous. But Maya was right. I couldn't continue to hold on to the anger and resentment. It was poisoning me, preventing me from fully embracing the present and looking forward to the future. So, I called my mom. We talked for hours, tears flowing freely on both ends of the line. She apologized again profusely for everything they had done. She told me how much they regretted believing Serena, how much they missed me, how proud they were of the man I had become. I told her I forgave them. It wasn't easy. The hurt was still there, lingering beneath the surface. But I knew that holding on to it would only hurt me in the long run. We started visiting them regularly. Maya came with me, charming them with her warmth and kindness. She helped them understand what I had been through, the pain I had endured, the strength I had shown. They, in turn, welcomed her into our family, embracing her as if she had always been a part of it. The healing process was slow, and at times painful. But with Maya's support, and with a genuine willingness from my parents to make amends, we slowly began to rebuild our relationship. My relationship with Caden was more complicated. He was still in prison, serving his sentence. I visited him regularly, bringing him books, magazines, and news from the outside world. He was remorseful. He knew he had screwed up, and he was determined to make amends. He took classes, participated in therapy, and worked hard to rehabilitate himself. He told me about the men he was incarcerated with, the stories of their lives, the mistakes they had made. He learned about the systemic inequalities that led many of them to a life of crime. He became an advocate for prison reform, volunteering to help other inmates, sharing his experiences, and offering them hope. I was proud of him. He was finally taking responsibility for his actions, using his experiences to make a positive impact on the world. As his release date approached, I started to worry. What would he do? Where would he go? How would he support himself? He had lost everything: his money, his friends, his reputation. He would be starting over from scratch, with a criminal record hanging over his head. I offered him a job. At my company, my team was shocked. Some were outright opposed to the idea. "Are you crazy, Liam?" they asked. "He's a convicted criminal. He'll ruin our reputation." I understood their concerns, but I believed in Caden. I knew he had changed. I knew he deserved a second chance. "He's my brother," I said. "I trust him, and I believe he can make a valuable contribution to our company." I hired him as an intern, starting at the bottom just like I had. He worked hard, proving himself every day. He was reliable, dedicated, and eager to learn. He quickly earned the respect of my team, who were impressed by his work ethic and his genuine desire to make a difference. He started to thrive. He found his niche, his passion, his purpose. He became an invaluable asset to my company, using his experiences to help others, to prevent them from making the same mistakes he had made. Just when I thought I had finally put Serena behind me, she resurfaced. Again. This time, it wasn't through social media or anonymous comments. It was a face-to-face confrontation. I was at a networking event, schmoozing with potential clients, when I saw her. Across the room, standing near the bar, her eyes fixed on me. My heart skipped a beat. A wave of anxiety washed over me. What was she doing here? What did she want? I tried to ignore her, to pretend I didn't see her, but she wouldn't let me. She started walking towards me, her eyes burning with intensity. I braced myself for a confrontation. I prepared myself for another round of lies, accusations, and manipulation. She stopped in front of me, her face inches from mine. "Liam," she said, her voice low and menacing, "we need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you, Serena," I said, my voice cold and hard. "Just leave me alone." "I'm not going anywhere," she said. "Not until I get what I want." "And what is that?" I asked. "Apology," she said. And compensation. An apology for ruining my life and compensation for the damage you caused to my career. I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. You're delusional, Serena. You ruined your own life. You made your own choices. I have nothing to apologize for. You destroyed me, she screamed, her voice rising. You took everything from me. You're a monster. I remained calm. I had dealt with her before. I knew how to handle her. You're wasting your time, Serena, I said. I'm not going to give you anything. Just leave me alone. If you don't, I'll call the police. She hesitated. She knew I meant it. She knew I wouldn't hesitate to call the authorities. This isn't over, Liam, she said, her eyes filled with hatred. I'll get my revenge. You just wait and see. She turned and stormed away, disappearing into the crowd. I watched her go, a sense of unease settling over me. I knew she was capable of anything. I knew she wouldn't give up easily. I had to be prepared. I had to protect myself, my business, and my family. I knew that Serena's last stand was far from over. Serena's threat hung over me like a dark cloud. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was planning something big. I increased security at my office, installed cameras at my home, and hired a private investigator to keep an eye on her. I also told Caden about the encounter. He was furious. I'm going to kill her, he said, his voice filled with rage. No, you're not, I said. We're going to handle this the right way. We're not going to let her drag us down to her level. He reluctantly agreed, but I could see the anger simmering beneath the surface. Then, I received a call from an unexpected source. Maya's younger sister, Sophia. Liam, she said, her voice urgent. I need to talk to you about Serena. Sophia and Serena had been friends in college. Sophia had always been wary of her, sensing her manipulative tendencies, but they had remained cordial. After the trial, Sophia cut all ties with Serena. She explained how Serena had contacted her, trying to pump her for information about me, about my business, about my family. Sophia played along, pretending to be sympathetic, while secretly recording their conversations. She had gathered a wealth of information, including details of Serena's plan to sabotage my business, to spread lies about me, and to ruin my reputation. She also revealed something shocking. Serena had been working with someone else, someone close to me, someone I trusted. My blood ran cold. Who could it be? Who would betray me like that? Sophia gave me a name, David. My business partner. I couldn't believe it. David had been with me since the beginning. He was my right-hand man, my confidant, my friend. But as I thought about it, I realized it made sense. David had always been envious of my success. He had always resented the fact that I was the one in charge. He had seen Serena as an opportunity to take me down, to seize control of my company, to finally get what he thought he deserved. Together, Serena and David had been plotting my downfall. They had been feeding each other information, coordinating their attacks, and working together to destroy me. Armed with Sophia's information, I confronted David. He denied everything, of course. He claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that Serena was lying, that I was being paranoid. But I had proof. I played the recordings Sophia had made. I showed him the evidence of his betrayal. He broke down. He admitted everything. He begged for forgiveness. I was disgusted. I felt betrayed, violated, and enraged. I wanted to kill him, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. I needed to remain calm, to think clearly, to devise a plan. I decided to turn the tables on them. I pretended to forgive David. I told him I understood his motivations, that I wasn't angry. I proposed a new plan, a plan to lure Serena into a trap, a plan to expose her for who she truly was. David reluctantly agreed. He was scared, desperate, and willing to do anything to avoid prison. We set the trap. We leaked false information to Serena, telling her that I was planning to invest in a new business venture. A business venture that would require a significant amount of capital. We knew Serena couldn't resist the opportunity to sabotage me. We knew she would try to steal the deal, to ruin my chances of success. We waited, patiently, carefully, knowing that Serena would eventually take the bait. And she did. She contacted David, offering him a deal. She would help him take control of my company, and in return, he would give her a cut of the profits. David pretended to agree. He told her he was in, that he was ready to betray me. They arranged a meeting, a secret rendezvous at a secluded location, a place where they could finalize their plans without being detected. I was waiting for them, hidden in the shadows, armed with cameras, microphones, and a team of lawyers. As they discussed their plan, I recorded everything. Every lie, every accusation, every act of betrayal. When they were finished, I stepped out of the shadows. Serena's face turned white with shock. David looked like he was about to vomit. "Game over," I said, my voice cold and hard. "I have everything I need. You're both going to prison." The evidence was overwhelming. Serena and David were arrested and charged with conspiracy, fraud, and defamation. The trial was a media circus. The courtroom was packed with reporters, photographers, and curious onlookers. Serena and David tried to blame each other, but the evidence was too strong. They were both found guilty on all charges. Serena was sentenced to several years in prison. David received a longer sentence due to his betrayal of trust. I watched as they were led away in handcuffs, their faces filled with despair. I felt a sense of closure, a sense of finally putting an end to the drama, but I also felt a pang of sadness. Serena and David had made their choices. They had chosen a path of greed, deceit, and destruction. They had ruined their own lives. I couldn't help but wonder what could have been. If they had chosen a different path, if they had used their talents for good instead of evil, they could have achieved so much. But it was too late. The damage was done. The consequences were irreversible. With Serena and David finally out of my life, I could focus on the future. I continued to build my business, expanding my operations, and creating new opportunities. I also strengthened my relationships with my family. Caden was released from prison and joined my company full-time. He became a valuable asset, using his experiences to help others avoid making the same mistakes he had made. My parents were proud of us both. They had finally learned their lesson. They had realized the importance of unconditional love, of trusting their children, and of supporting them through thick and thin. I married Maya. Our wedding was a beautiful celebration of love, family, and friendship. It was a day filled with joy, laughter, and tears. As I looked into her eyes, I knew that I had finally found happiness. I had overcome the challenges of my past, and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The price of gold had been high, but in the end, it was worth it. I had learned the value of forgiveness, the importance of family, and the power of love. I had built a life worth living, a life filled with purpose, passion, and meaning, and I was ready to face the future with confidence, courage, and unwavering hope. The end.